there guys, and welcome to another edition of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Apologies, this episode's going up pretty late. I was waiting on some graphics from my colleague who helps me out with this stuff, and then to be honest I wasn't too happy with the first episode, so I thought I'd re-record it now, get the standard up a little bit. So for those of you who've been wondering where the power rankings are, here we go. Going to have two episodes coming up for you guys today. The offense and the defense will both be covered, and then next Monday we're going to bring it all together, combine it with special teams and coaching to give my final paper power rankings. And by paper power rankings, what I'm doing is I've broke down both sides of the ball. So for this episode we'll be covering the offense. I've broke it down to quarterback, the running back position, the receiving group, which includes wide receivers and tight ends, and the offensive line group. I've then ranked every group from 1st through to 32nd in the league, giving points corresponding to where that ranking is, and then totaled them together to give a final power ranking for that side of the ball. We're going to combine all that together next week, and I assure you the results are very interesting. So let's hop right in on the offense. I'm just going to go through each team, starting with the team that finished lowest, just giving a brief explanation of where I ranked each team, why I ranked them the way I did. So the team that came in dead last in these power rankings on the offensive side of the ball, bear in mind there are some ties overall, we have the New York Jets. Now, I don't think this will be a huge shock to anyone who's gone through that team's depth chart at this point in time. I've got them ranked dead last in terms of quarterbacking. McCown struggles staying healthy, is a low-end starter at best. Christian Hackenberg hasn't played a snap in the NFL. Bryce Petty looked far from ready. The running back group, they came in a little bit better off at 26. Matt Forte doesn't quite look like the same player he was with Chicago. Bilal Powell's okay, but I don't feel like there's a home run hitter there or a true threat. It's unspectacular at best as a pairing. The wide receiving group with Eric Decker gone, I've got them ranked 29th, which could even be argued that's a bit high. Quincy Enunwa showed me some things last year. Obviously this year I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. He's going to see a lot of the football as the primary receiver. You'd have to think if Austin Seferian-Jenkins can ever pull his head out, who knows, maybe he'll be able to be a significant contributor. Beyond that, it's going to be a bunch of young, unproven guys, and we'll see what happens. And the offensive line group, they came ranked dead last. Based on what I saw last year, you know, they've lost Nick Mangold, the one experienced quality player they had, even though, you know, he's not been the same player the last couple of years due to a combination of injuries and age. You look at this group, it's hard to know where the quality starters are going to be. So overall, the Jets come in totaling a mighty 13 points out of a possible 128. They rank dead last in my offensive power rankings. This is going to be a long season for Gangrene, you would have to think. So coming in second to last, we've got another not particularly surprising team, the LA Rams. So quarterback position, I had them ranked 30th of 32. Jared Goff, of course, does have some upside and potential, although based on what we saw last year, I'm not sure he's going to be able to realise it this season. You know, they're ranked pretty low in these power rankings for a reason. It's not a good offensive roster. Case Keenum's a perfectly fine backup. Combine the two of them, still not a huge amount there. I have to put them at 30th. The running back group, bit better off there. I've put them 16th, which could be a bit high based on what we saw from Todd Gurley last year. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. They haven't got much behind him. I think that could be a problem. So middle of the pack there. The receiving group, I've got them coming in dead last. Tavon Austin just has not shown that he's a legitimate starter, to be honest, at this point in time. He just appears to me to be a gadget player. Robert Woods, who they brought in, unspectacular. I think Cooper Kupp's going to be a good option for them, but at this point he's just a rookie. I think they're pretty thin across the board in the receiving group. Hard to see a huge amount of plays coming from them this year. And the offensive line, they come in 26th, and frankly that's mainly because of the additions they made. I can't give them as much credit as I would like to. Andrew Whitworth, of course, right on the tail end of his career. There's a possibility he might not be the same player next season, although he did perform very well last year in Cincinnati. They brought in John Sullivan, formerly of the Vikings. If he's fully healthy, he's a pretty good player, but again a bit older. Beyond that, there is not much talent in this group, so they do finish pretty low there. In the end, the Rams coming up with a total of 28 points under this system. I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is probably going to be a pretty bad offense next season. It can only be better with a bit of coaching. I mean, they could not get that right in Jeff Fisher's time there, it seems. So we got a tie for the 22nd spot, and that tie is oddly between a pair of teams that were competing in the Super Bowl not too long ago. We've got the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll start with San Fran. I've got them ranked 28th in the quarterback group. Again, pretty low as you might expect. They brought the two quarterbacks over from Chicago. Brian Hoyer's, a low-end starter. He'll get them through the year, the journeyman that he is. Solid veteran presence. Matt Barkley was probably better than most people would have expected last year for Chicago. He's a backup, I don't think there's a lot of upside there. But it'll be enough to get them through the year, you'd think. Running back position, I've got them 21st. Part of that is all the talk about how poor a fit Carlos Hyde is for that system. I like Carlos Hyde as a player, but he has struggled to stay healthy. Of course, they brought over a couple of fullbacks, Patrick DeMarco among them. I'm not sure how much difference that will make. And, they got the rookie, was it Joe Williams? We'll see what he can do. It's hard to give him a high score here, especially with all those rumours there. Wide receiving group, they came in 28th. This is basically through two players. Pierre Garçon is a solid NFL receiver, something they've not had for a couple of years. And Vance McDonald is it is a serviceable option with some upside, I think, at the tight end position. Beyond that, I think the rest of the spots are going to be absolutely up for grabs in this offense. So hard to give them too much credit there. The offensive line, I've got them ranked 20th. I think the Zutar trade was a pretty good one. Solidifies the centre position. Joe Staley's still there. He's an absolutely rock solid player. They need the rest of the guys to come together in this group, but they're not going to be. I don't think they'll be atrocious on that along the line. So they come in with a score of 35. As I say, that is tied with the Ravens. I've got Joe Flacco ranked 18 as out of the quarterbacks in the league. Some may say that's a bit low. I can maybe see the argument is just he's a bit inconsistent for me. I'm not sure how much he does in terms of elevating the team around him. He's only really been successful when it's been a talented group. Of course, the last couple of years they've had no run game and the receiver position has been thin. But I just don't feel like he's done enough. But at the end of the day, he's not an absolute liability. I just don't know if he's good enough to lead a team without some significant assistance. Those teams, when they were making the playoffs every year, had great defences and, for the most part, serviceable offences. But since Ray Rice's decline and exit from the league, I think it's been a real tough run for Flacco, and he's probably shown he's not on the level of those top-tier quarterbacks. The running back group for the Ravens, I've got them coming second last in the league. I don't know what they're going to look to do at that position. It's been tough there. I think that's a job that's wide open, but you don't look at it right now and think there's a team would be worried about if they were playing tomorrow. The receiving group I've got ranked 27th. I think the Dennis Pitta injury and subsequent release is a big deal for them. He's been a big part of their team for the last few years. Flacco's favourite target. Perriman needs to develop. I can't give him too much credit. He's just not done anything with his career. He's been injured and played poorly when he has been on the field. Bringing in Jeremy Maclin. I like Maclin. I think he's a fine player. But I don't think he's a game changer on his own. And then Mike Wallace is Mike Wallace. He's just inconsistent. This group could, I think, be better than this when the season starts, but I'm edging towards them not. Perriman's a real unknown for me. He's got the potential to get this group significantly higher up this ranking. And then the offensive line, I've got them ranked at 21st overall. A lot of that comes from Marshall Yonder. Might be the best offensive lineman in the league at this point in time. Ronnie Stanley had an okay rookie season. I would expect to see improvement from him, second year in the league. But beyond that, I think the loss of Zutar is going to be more significant than perhaps some people think. Ricky Wagner's a big loss. I don't feel they've adequately replaced him. And of course, they lost Kalichi Assembly last year. So I think it's safe to say this group is a lot worse than it was a few years ago. Could be a good ranking. I think we're going to see a couple of unknowns there. But for now, on paper, you've got a stud guard, a second-year tackle with some upside and not much else. So I couldn't give them too high a rating. I think the Ravens are certainly a team that could rise up these rankings once the season does kick off. But at this point, there's a lot of question marks. And for that reason, they do end up coming in pretty low in the overall rankings. So moving on, we've got the Cleveland Browns coming in ranked 21 with a total score of 37. I've got them at 29th in my quarterback rankings. I think Cody Kessler looks like a backup, to be honest. Possibly got some upside to be a starter. Kaiser's a title unknown. I wouldn't expect to see too much of him this year. And Brock Osweiler, based on what I saw last season, they're not getting any credit for having him. So come in with a predictably low rating. Who knows, that could end up improving as the season goes on if one of these guys can demonstrate that they're a solid NFL starter. The running back group, I've got them ranked 29th. Isaiah Crowell started last year pretty well, but then that seemed to sort of die off after the first 5 or 6 weeks. Again, I don't feel like a lot of the teams in this area, I don't feel like there's a game changer there, a threat that's going to really concern the team, so I can't rank them particularly highly. The wide receiver group ends up coming in second from last. You've got David Njoku in there. A lot of talent, but I don't think we'll see too much from him this year. I think he's a very raw prospect. Corey Coleman, I'm not sure he's a true number one, and he's had problems staying healthy, but I can see the potential there. Needs to show a bit more on the field, but beyond that, Kenny Britt is incredibly unreliable, and they've not really got too much else. A bunch of youngsters, unproven. We'll see what happens there, but it's hard to get excited looking at this group of weapons. I think Terrell Price, clearly a big loss. He was very good for them last year. The thing that preserves the Browns' score from being right at the very bottom is the offensive line, which I've got ranked 6th. It could possibly be higher based on how good it looks on paper. I have held it back somewhat just because I think chemistry is important to an offensive line, but 6th overall, I think that's pretty fair. Joe Thomas, of course, an absolute stud. Bringing in J.C. Tretter and Kevin Zietler I think Zietler's one of the best guards in the league. He's in his prime. J.C. Tretter's a perfectly solid player. They re-signed Joel Bitonio. That's 4 very good players along that front. What they do at right tackle, I'm not so sure, but that's good enough to have them pretty high up on this list, and really does salvage the entire offense's score. Coming in at 20th, we do have another tie. So we've got the Chicago Bears tied with, once I find them, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll start with Chicago. Quarterback group, I've got them ranked 26th. Part of that is Trubisky being such a high pick. Some upside there. I also think Glennon is possibly a low end to mediocre starter in this league. his time in Tampa, as I've mentioned before. He was on some really bad teams. It certainly wasn't easy for him, and he never really ended up getting a fair shake of the stick, as you'd say, once Lovie Smith got to town. But in spite of that, still hard to have him ranked particularly highly. The running back group, I got them 17th. I think, in Jordan Howard, they've got an absolute stud based on last season. I just need to see him do it again. I'm not sure what they've got beyond him. If he were to get hurt, I think that would spell real trouble. But on the strength of his rookie season alone, I'm willing to put them, right in the middle of the pack. Could certainly be better if he can replicate that this season. The wide receiving group, I've got them coming in at 30. Not a huge amount there. Alshon Jeffrey, of course, a big loss. I thought Cameron Meredith last year was an intriguing player, showed enough to think that he might be a low-end starter, possibly even a decent number 2 in the league. We'll see what he can do in his second year. Kevin White, much like Brashad Perriman, who I mentioned with the Ravens, had problems staying on the field and hasn't really done a huge amount when he has been. So it's not a great group overall. And the offensive line, I got them coming in at 14th, and that's pretty much on the strength of the interior. Can't remember the name of the rookie who they had at centre last year, but he was a good player for them. I think Josh Sitton and Carl Long are one of the better guard tandems in the league. Tackle, I do think, is a big problem, but on the strength of that interior, they do end up with a fairly solid grade there. So these two teams tied up with 45 points. That's the Bears. The Jags, I've got them at 27th at quarterback. Blake Bortles, I've got very little faith in, but there are worse guys than him in the league, as hard as that is to believe. Running back position, I think Leonard Fournette is an absolute monster. I think he's going to be great in this league. Him and TJ Yeldon together, basically combined to be the 13th ranked group. I think Fournette's going to be great. I really liked Yeldon coming out of college, and I think he's got an opportunity to be a good player as a contrast to Fournette. I think between the two of them, you've got a nice mix of skills. I think Yeldon's an excellent receiver out of the backfield, shiftier type of back. Fournette's just got everything you could want from a power back, including that home run speed you don't often see in guys of that size. So I think they could be a very good group again. If Fournette really does hit the ground running, they could fly up these rankings. The receiving group, I've got them coming in at 19th. The two Allens, perfectly good players. I like both of them. I'm not sure there's a true number 1 amongst them, but they're both high-end number 2s potentially. So I think... And Marquise Lee... Is Marquise Lee still there, or did he leave? Anyway, between those two, that's good enough to get them 19th. And the offensive line comes in at 28th. It could be better. Really does come down to the two new tackles, Brandon Albert, who they acquired for a trade from the Dolphins. If he's healthy and playing to the standard we used to, if he can do that, and Cam Robinson, the rookie, can play well, they'll certainly climb up these rankings. But at this point, it's a poor group with a lot of unknown elements. So for that reason, I cannot rate them highly. So moving on to we've got another tie at 19. We've got the New York Football Giants, and they are tied with, once I can find them, the Kansas City Chiefs. So two playoff teams, both good teams, but they do come in ranked pretty low on the offense with scores of 50. So the Chiefs we'll start with, they got a score of 17 at quarterback, which is right around the range you'd probably expect Alex Smith to fall into. At this point, we know exactly what Alex Smith is. I haven't changed the ranking based on Patrick Mahomes being there, because I just do not see him seeing the field this year. Even if Alex Smith were to get injured, I would be surprised to see Mahomes on the field. We know he is. He's a solid but limited starting quarterback. Running back spot, I've got them at 28th, which some may feel is a bit harsh. I think Andy Reid does a great job of calling the offense. I think he enables those running backs to be successful. I think Spencer Ware and Kendrick West are fine players, but again, kind of like a lot of the teams around here, I don't think they're game changers. I don't think teams, playing the Chiefs think, well, we've got to stop one or either of these guys specifically. They're just fine. I think the loss of Jamal Charles is going to hurt them in the grand scheme of things. The receiving group, I've got them ranked 25th. Of course, moved down slightly in the wake of the Macklin departure, as than where I would normally have had them. Travis Kelce counts a lot towards this. I think he's one of the best receiving tight ends in the league, certainly in the top 4 or 5. Saw enough, I think, last year. The rookie, whose name has just eluded me, I think I'm probably sick of mentioning it after ranting about him turning up so high in the top 100, Tyreek Hill. I think he'll be a weapon for them next year, but my worry is I don't know if he's going to be capable of carrying a load as true number 1. Not that Andy Reid's scheme necessarily needs one, but the rest of the group's inexperienced and uninspiring, so I can't give them a particularly high rating there. And then the offensive line, I've got them ranked 12th. I think it's a better group than some people think. Eric Fisher, okay, he's not lived up to the standards you'd hope for from a number 1 pick, but he has improved. He's become a serviceable left tackle. Mitchell Schwartz, whilst I don't think he had a great season last year, he's a proven commodity at right tackle. I think he's a good player. And the interior is solid. As a unit, it's pretty good. Better than the sum of its parts. So they come in there for the 12th spot. The Giants on a very different level in terms of the way I rank them. So we've got the Giants, I've got them at 16th. At quarterback, Eli last year concerned me. I'm giving him sort of the benefit of the doubt. Certainly feel like his play warranted a worse position than this last season, but I'm gonna be somewhat conservative with it. The running back spot, I've got them ranked last. I don't know what they're planning to do at that position. Paul Perkins played okay at the end of last year, but beyond that, I'm not sure. Again, this is an impact play that's going to worry people. The receiving group, they come in 3rd on my list. The Marshall and Odell Beckham tandem might be the best tandem in football. Sterling Shepard had a promising rookie year. Evan Ingram as a receiving tight end, that's a pretty good 4. Not got much beyond that. That's the reason there's 2 teams above them, and I just think those 2 teams have a bit more depth. But that should be a very dangerous group. And the offensive line, I've got them ranked 31st, so that also helped, along with the running back position, really carries this grade down. Justin Pugh's a fine player. Eric Flowers has really struggled in his time in the league. The rest of the group is not particularly good. Really held this team back last year. It's a shame, that receiving group is great. I think Eli can probably still, more likely than not, I think he can still play. But this O-line is not good. So, still a giant question mark heading into the season. But based on last year, I can't give him a particularly good grade. So, moving on. Where were we? We got Team 18. Coming in with 1 point more than them. And, starting to see a pattern with some of the teams around here. We've got the Denver Broncos. Got them at the quarterback position, coming in at 25th. I'm probably a bigger fan of Trevor Siemian than most. I think he looked like a capable NFL starter last year, particularly with some of the struggles around him on the offense. Paxton Lynch, I think he may end up getting the benefit of the doubt, and I am bearing that in mind somewhat. Between the 2 of them, it's still not particularly inspiring. The running back group, I've got them at 18th. I think Jamal Charles is a big addition. It gives them someone who can certainly contribute in the receiving game. A lot of experience. If he's fully healthy, he's an incredibly dynamic back. The rest of the guys, in my opinion, are just guys, but that's it. Jamal Charles, I think, will be the defining factor in where this ranking likely ends up once the season kicks off. I've got them ranked 11 in receiving group. I think Sanders and Thomas are a great pair. I don't think they've got much beyond those 2 guys, however, so it does drag this ranking down a little bit. There are a lot of teams with just more weapons, even if the high-end quality isn't necessarily there. The offensive line, I've got them ranked 27th. Ronald Leary, I think, was a really savvy addition, but I still think they look very soft at the tackle spot. I think that could bite them. And at the end of the day, the interior wasn't good last year either, so still a lot of work to do along the offensive front. Maybe it'll be better this year. We shall see. So that's the Broncos, as I say, coming in 18th with 51 points. And again, team they played in the Super Bowl not too long ago, coming in at 17th with 52 points. We've got the Seattle Seahawks. It's really a testament to Russell Wilson that he's managed to keep this offense ticking last year, and it doesn't look like a much better group heading into next season. So he's coming 7th in my quarterback rankings. As I say, last year I think he did a great job, particularly as the run offense. Well, the run game and the offensive line were bordering on non-existent. Running back, I've got them at 22nd. Part of this is I'm not sure if I can trust Eddie Lacy. He has had injury problems, of course, he's had the weight problems. If you can get rid of them, this could certainly go up. And also we've got the health of CJ Prosise, who I thought looked very good in his limited action toward the end of last season. If he can come back from the injury and Eddie Lacy can get back to form we saw in his rookie season, this could be a really good pair. But I'm just going to edge towards the lower end of average at this point. Receiving group, got the Seahawks coming in also at 22nd. I love Doug Baldwin. I think he's a great player. Jimmy Graham is also, very serviceable tight end that functions essentially as a receiver. Beyond that, Tyler Lockett is a deep ball catcher, not much else. I'm not sure they've got a lot else there. A Doug Baldwin injury would be devastating for this offense. It really would. There really are some teams that are kind of carried by not too many players on offense. So again, this ranking, if Lockett comes back healthy, they get some better protection. Jimmy Graham finds his rhythm early in the season. This could go up, but it doesn't inspire me, I've got to be honest. And then the offensive line comes in at 29th. Anyone who watched this team last year can tell you how bad this line was. When you're signing Luke Jokel in the hope of being your starting left tackle and improving the group, says to me you've got problems. It's a young group. They really could improve. They got Pochich in the draft, who's a player I was pretty high on, especially with his versatility. But it's just hard to see them being a massively effective group. That also contributes to dragging this team's rating down. So next up, we've got the Colts coming in at 16 and with a score of 53. Andrew Luck comes in as my 8th ranked quarterback. Similar to what I was just saying with Russell Wilson. The O-line's a bit better there, but not much help beyond that. I think he's performed really well over the course of his career there. Got them ranked 30th at running back. I like Marlon Mack, but he's not played down in the NFL. Frank Gore, at this point, is a middling kind of runner. He could potentially fall off this year, so I can't give him a particularly high grade there. The receiver group comes in at 24th. Love T.Y. Hilton, fantastic player. I think Jack Doyle overperformed last season. Be interested to see if he can keep that going. Beyond that, Dante Moncrief is okay. Philip Dorsett's been an absolute bust. It's just not a particularly scary group. Although, as I say, T.Y. Hilton is absolutely fantastic. Take nothing away from him. And I've got them ranked 17th along the offensive line. They have been the fall guys because, for a couple of seasons they were one of the worst groups in the league. They're still not great, but they do have some players. Ryan Kelly had a good rookie season. Jack Newhart's a solid guard. Costanzo had a bad season last year. If he can bounce back, this group is edging towards acceptability. So, I put middle of the pack with the assumption Costanzo will play better. Maybe not a Pro Bowl level or anything, but better than he did last year. So, coming in with the next ranking, we've got the Houston Texans with a score of 58. So I've got them ranked 31st at the quarterback position. Tom Savage does not inspire anyone. Of course, Deshaun Watson, there's a good chance he'll start, but we haven't seen a snap from him in the NFL. So for that reason, I just cannot give him a good rating. The running back group, I've got them at 11. Part of that is because I love the fit of Donta Foreman in this offense. I think he's a perfect contrast to Lamar Miller as more of a power back. I think those two will be very good. I think Lamar Miller had a very good season last year in Houston, particularly considering the lack of a passing game. Teams could just focus on stopping him. The receiver group comes in 17th. I know DeAndre Hopkins statistically didn't have a great year last year, but with Brock Osweiler throwing in the ball, I'm willing to give him a pass. 2 seasons before that, he'd been fantastic in both of them. I think he's one of the top players at the position in the league. Will Fuller, I think he'll be better in year 2. Had a lot of drops after starting the season really well. I think there's a lot of upside to this group. With better quarterback play, I think we'll get to see an all-round increase in productivity. In the offensive line, I've got ranked at 15. Dwayne Brown didn't have his best year, but he's a good player. The rest of the group is pretty solid. It is pretty much the epitome of a middling offensive line, but no real gaping holes. So they come in there for me. They're a score of 58. Next up, we've got the Bills, 1 point higher for a total of 59. I've got them at 21st at quarterback. Tyrod Taylor does some things well, some things not so well. He could certainly fly up this list with some improvement. The running back spot, I've got them at 10th because LaShawn McCoy really just has been that good in Buffalo. Is an every down back, gives them the threat in the receiving game as well. So he gets a high score. The receiving group comes in at 26th. I'm a big Sammy Watkins fan, but he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. I like Zay Jones, the rookie, but he's a rookie. Charles Clay is a fine tight end. If they can find a third receiver and Zay Jones this group could potentially be good, but I'm not sure about them heading into next season. And the offensive line comes in at 16th. A really good group run blocking. Cordy Glenn's a fine player. Richie Incognito's been very effective the last few years. No major, not as good in pass protection, especially the right hand side of that line, but they get the job done in terms of what this team does offensively, that being running the ball a heck of a lot. So next up, we've got another tie. We've got the Panthers tied with the Cardinals, both on 63 points. So we'll start in Arizona. I've got Carson Palmer ranked at 20th. Saw some signs of decline early last season, but then he seemed to adjust to the offensive line injuries, played quite well. I think he needs the support around him to be effective. For that reason, I can't put him ahead of a lot of guys, but again, this is a guy, if he recaptures the form of a couple of years ago, he could fly up this list. Running back spot, I've got them at 7. David Johnson is just that damn good. One of the top weapons in all of football right now. 23rd at the receiving position. Fitzgerald, still an effective player, but he's not the all-world talent that he was a few seasons ago. John Brown struggled last year with injuries. I think I like the potential there, but I need to see it on a more consistent basis. JJ Nelson's just a speed guy. I'm not too... Jermaine Gresham's very average at tight end. Comes in as a slightly below average group for me. And the offensive line, I've got them ranked 19. It's got potential to be better than that. Veldy is a good player. Upati's a good player. I want to see what Humphreys does on the blind side. See how the rest of the group looks. Struggled last year amidst a rash of injuries, but they got to prove to me that they'll be better this year. The Panthers, similar sort of issues. I've got Cam up at 15. Whilst he's only 2 years removed from an MVP season, I think last year he really did struggle. Word is he was injured, but his play just was not good enough down the stretch. Possibly should have sat out if it was affecting him that badly. And at the end of the day, outside of that MVP season, he has been a bit inconsistent over the course of his career. Got the running back group at 8th though. A lot of this will come down to whether Jonathan Stewart can stay healthy, which he's always had problems doing. But him and McCaffrey should be a dynamic pairing. McCaffrey, of course, will be able to contribute heavily in the receiving game. Even as a rookie, I've got no doubt he'll be exceptional in that regard. I've got them at 21st in the receiving group. A lot of that comes down to Greg Olsen still being an absolute stud at tight end. I like their second round draft pick, the kid from Ohio State. Name eludes me. Benjamin and Funchess, I'm not sure about. I think Funchess is a very average player. Benjamin, we'll see. He started last season well, then really seemed to drift. If his head's entirely in it, he's got his body healthy. I think he's a dangerous weapon. But I can't grade the group too highly based on those two. They're unknowns for me. And the offensive line group comes in at 25th. Pretty good at guard, pretty good at centre if Khalil is healthy, but the tackle spot is just an abomination. The other Khalil does not inspire me as a signing. They lost Mike Remmers, and he was okay at right tackle, but did struggle in pass pro. Really, really worry about that group. It's been a problem the last couple of seasons. It doesn't appear to have been remedied for me, and it really does drag down this rating significantly. So, next up, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals coming in with 66 points. Andy Dalton, he comes in at 19th on my scale. I think he's just a bit below Joe Flacco. Again, if he's got the players around him, I think he can be an effective player. Last year we saw once AJ Green was injured, he really struggled. Not all down to him, but I'm not sure he's capable of carrying a team. The running back group, I've got them at 9. I think Joe Mixon and Bernard will be a great 1-2. If Jeremy Hill can recapture some of that early career form, I think this group could potentially be as dynamic and deep as any in the league. The receiving group comes in at 14. AJ Green is one of the top receivers in the game. Tyler Eifert, if he can stay healthy, is also added. The speedster John Ross in round 1, I think he could help. Adds another element to the offense, but really those two are absolute studs, so that's the reason for such a high ranking. And the offensive line, I've got them at 24th. A lot of losses there. Relying on seeing replacements. I can't rank them highly for that reason. Who knows how that group will come together. But that gives the Bengals a score of 66. So, next up on the list. Who have we got? We've got the Vikings coming in with a score of 68. So, I've got them at 22nd for the quarterback position. Sam Bradford, he is what he is. Effective dinky dunk type quarterback, but I think he's got his limitations. Kind of like a Alex Smith, but probably not as effective as decision maker. The running back group comes in quite high with the Dalvin Cook selection. I wasn't high on them signing Latavius Murray, but as a number 2, I think he's going to be pretty effective. I think Dalvin Cook's a stud. If he can keep his nose clean, I think they're going to be a good group. The receiving group comes in at 20th. Carl Rudolph is a solid tight end. That pretty much is this group across the board. There's some okay players, but I worry about game-breaking ability. Adam Thielen played quite well last year. I'm assuming Michael Floyd just does nothing for them, frankly. You've got last year's first rounder needs to really, Laquan Treadwell needs to step in and contribute for me. And the other fella, he's a good player. His name's just totally in me. But they've got another receiver who's pretty good there, and it's going to bug me, but I'm sure his name will pop up in my head over the course of the episode. But they come in 20th there, as I say. Solid, unspectacular across the board for me. And the offensive line, I've got them coming in at 30th. They were an abomination last year. They couldn't run block. They couldn't pass protect. They brought in Riley Reef. It's an improvement on Khalil, but not an enormous one. We'll see what happens. It might be a bit low, but they really did worry me last year. Until I see otherwise, I'm going to have them low on my list. So next up, we've got the Detroit Lions coming in with a score of 70. So I've got Stafford as the 10th rated quarterback. I think last season, while statistically not his most impressive, visually absolutely his most impressive. I think he's really grown in the last couple of years as a player. The running back group I've got 25th. We saw last year without Amir Abdullah, there's a real lack of explosiveness and high-end quality there. Abdullah looked good in his limited action, but needs to see him stay healthy, do it longer, and then they could get up this list. I've got them at 16th at receiver. I think Golden Tate and Marvin Jones are both fine players, but again, uninspiring. Don't think they're enormously dangerous. And then, they're okay at tight end with a Bron, who's underachieved considering where he was picked, but not a bad player at this point in his career, although he needs to stop dropping the ball so much. And the offensive line, which I haven't actually taken into account the Decker injury at this point. I'm assuming he'll come back at some point during the season, but I've got them ranked 11, which I can, it's pretty high up there. Wagner was a great signing. TJ Lang was a great signing. Decker was great last year. If he can get healthy and play the majority of the season, then should be a solid group. So they come in 70th. The next team we've got the Eagles with a score of 72. I've got Carson Wentz at 23. This could end up being significantly higher, or it could end up being about right. Depends whether the end of season Carson Wentz comes back. Of course, his weapons were a problem last year. I've got him at 21st at running back. Now, Garrett Blount is fine for what he is, but he's a very one-dimensional player. They've not got much else at that position. The receiving group comes in at 8th. I'm a big fan of this group. I like what they've got at tight end. Zach Ertz and Selleck are fine players. Alshon Jeffrey gives them middle of the pack, big body number 1 type receiver. Torrey Smith gives them a deep threat. Jordan Matthews, I think, can excel in the slot. I think this is a pretty good group now. Much better than what Wentz was working with last year. And they come in 9th at the offensive line position. Jason Peters is still playing at a high level. Lane Johnson is an exceptional right tackle. The interior is pretty solid. It's a pretty damn good group overall. The Eagles, they come in as the 10th ranked offense on my list. Moving on to Miami, who come in with a 75-point score. I've got Tannehill pretty low down, to be honest. He comes in as my 24th overall quarterback. He's certainly got the potential to be better, but he just has been inconsistent, at times flat out bad throughout his career. Need to see him step it up this year. He's holding back what I think is a very talented group. I've got them ranked 15 at running back. Jay Ajayi, very good. I just need to see him do it for another year. I think Kenyon Barner offers a nice change of pace there. The receiving group, I think, is a lot better than a lot of people would think. They've got them ranked 9th. If they can get Julius Thomas playing like he did back in his Denver days, that'll be a wonderful addition. Make him a lot more dangerous. You've got possibly the best slot receiver in the league in Jarvis Landry. Devontae Parker showed flashes last year, and Kenny Stills is a deep threat. So inconsistent one. If Devontae Parker and Julius Thomas are both wild cards, I think between them, it's a pretty balanced, diverse group. I like the mix of players they've got. The offensive line also comes in ranked 9th. Health will be a big deal here. Without Pouncey, they always look significantly worse. We'll see what happens with him. They're moving Tunsil over to the left side. I think he'll be fine. He played well last year when healthy. Juwan James is a rock-solid right tackle, and I like the draft pick of Isaac Asiata. I think he'll step in right away and be a solid player for them. So I think it's a good group. Pouncey needs to stay healthy this year, though, for them to maximise that. Next up is the Buccaneers offense, much heralded this offseason, coming up with 77 points, good for 8th in the league. I've got Jameis Winston as the 11th ranked quarterback. I think last year he was very impressive considering the lack of help he had around him. The O-line was poor, the run game non-existent for the most part, and the receiving group was Mike Evans. Adam Humphries is a solid player. Cam Brate helped out, but it was a pretty one-dimensional attack, but he still made it work to a degree. He's cut down the turnovers, of course. The running back group, I've got them coming in at 19th. I think Jacquizz Rodgers looked pretty good at times last year. I think Charles Sims is a good third down runner and receiving back. Who knows what they're going to get from Doug Martin? Will it be the good Doug or the bad Doug? There has been no middle ground with him in his career. He's either had an all-pro caliber season or he's been very poor. Missing the first few games suspension, we'll see. Who knows what will happen there. I've got them ranked 2nd at receiver. Now this is where all the hype's come from. They have made a lot of additions. The reason I've got them above the Giants here is simply depth. I think Mike Evans and Odell Beckham, pretty much a wash as number 1 receivers, both fantastic. Then you've got Deshaun Jackson. I think Brandon Marshall's probably a more effective overall player, but Jackson gives a different element. Not too far off being a wash there, but then between the rookie in Chris Godwin and Adam Humphries, and as opposed to Sterling Shepard, it's just a bit more depth. OJ Howard, they've got a tight end that's proven in Cam Brate. He's been very solid as a receiving tight end. OJ Howard, there's just a bit more depth there. I think this team's better equipped to deal with injuries. There's a little bit of everything in this group. It looks like a dynamic and dangerous bunch. We'll see how it plays out, but on paper, they come in second. And the offensive line comes in at 23rd. If anything's likely to hold this group back, it's the offensive line. The tackle position, DeMar Dotson's getting up there. Donovan Smith's probably better suited to being a right tackle. They're okay. They're moving Ali Marpet, who's a very good young guard, to centre. We'll see how that works out. J.R. Sweezy at guard the guard position concerns me massively. They weren't good on the O-line last year, so they come in 23rd there. Right, next up, we've got a tie for 7th place between the Washington Redskins and the San Diego Chargers, both coming in with 80 points. So we'll start with, not San Diego, LA Chargers, my apologies, still getting used to that one. So the Chargers, they come in 6th at quarterback. Phillip Rivers is great. I know he's turned the ball over a lot in the last few years. He's not had a lot of help around him though. The running back group comes in at 14th. I need Melvin Gordon to do it again, show some improvement. Not much behind him, but I thought he was very impressive last year before getting hurt. Receiving group comes in at 10th. Now they've added Mike Williams. There's a lot of question marks here, but they've added Mike Williams. Keenan Allen should hopefully be healthy and not injure himself badly in the first game again. Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry solid at tight end, it would appear. And then you've got the receivers that stepped up last year. Is it Jarrell Johnson? Forget, but he was pretty effective for them last year. Looks like a pretty good group on paper. A lot of question marks. That's why they come in at 10th. And the O-line, I've got them at 22nd. Like the Forest Lamp edition, added another rookie guard. I forget who at this point in time. They should be better. It's been a big problem for them. If they can get it right, I think this team could be quite good, but can only put them at 22nd at this point in time until I see them, do it on the field. We've got the Redskins. I've got Kirk Cousins at 14th. Some games he just doesn't seem particularly with it. Becomes a bit of a turnover machine. Good player, but 14th on my list. 23rd at the running back spot. They just need to make up their mind. I think there's some guys there, but again, this is no one in group, so I'm not sure there's anyone that particularly scares a team. Maybe no game changers there. They have been chopping and changing, trying to find that guy, it feels, over the last couple of years. The receiving group comes in at 13th. Part of this is a little bit unproven. Jamison Crowder's not quite done it long enough. You got last year's first rounder. He needs to step up this year. Terrell Pryor, he was great last year. Him and Jordan Reed, I think, are both going to be very effective for them. It'll be down to Crowder and who was the rookie? Again, name escapes me at this point. And then we've got them ranked second in the offensive line rankings. A very unheralded group, but I think they're great. Very good at tackle. Trent Williams is good as it gets at left tackle in the league right now. Morgan Moses is a very good right tackle. Brandon Scherf has played pretty well. Played very well last year at guard. So I think they're stout along that front. No real holes there. So that obviously a big contributing factor to their ranking being as high as it is. So next up, we're heading to the 6th spot, and I believe we've got a tie there as well. And do we? We do not. We've got the Packers coming in at 6th with 81 points. So Aaron Rodgers comes in second in my QB list. So don't really need to say too much there. Possibly that when he's on, the best quarterback in the league right now. The running back spot, a big problem. I've got them at 27th there. They've drafted a lot of guys to try and fix it. And all things considered, they've got great production out of Ty Montgomery. But again, it's hard to evaluate this group. They have to end up coming in low. Could have even been lower, to be honest. I've got them ranked 4th in the receiving group. Martellus Bennett is a big addition when you combine him with Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson. That's just a really good foursome. So I expect them to be very good again. And the offensive line, I've got them ranked 18th. I like them at tackle. Bulaga's a fine right tackle. Bakhtiari's one of the top left tackles in the league. The interior concerns me. The loss of long-term guards, Sitton and Lang, over the last couple of seasons will likely hurt them. They were both high-quality players. It'll be interesting to see how they do. Could end up being higher though. So Packers come in, still a good offense. In Aaron Rodgers. As Rodgers goes, this offense goes, as we all know. Coming at 5th, we've got a tie. This is where the scores are getting significantly higher. These are, on paper, the top offenses in football. And crazy enough, this tie is between the Patriots and the Titans. So, not sure many would have saw that coming. The Patriots, I've got them ranked first at quarterback because until I see Tom Brady decline, he's the best quarterback in football. The running back group comes in at 20th. I think it's a solid group, but again, it's going to be chopping and changing. James White, Dion Lewis, the fellow they picked up for Gillisley from the Bills. Solid, unspectacular in my opinion. They come in 20th. They rank first in receivers. There's just so much depth there. You've got the best tight end in football in Gronk. Dwayne Allen, I think, is a pretty good backup. I mean, they've both got injury problems, but if they're on the field, they're both solid. Brandon Cooks for the speed. Edelman's one of the top slot receivers in all of football. Amendola's a solid pair of hands. Malcolm Mitchell should improve. He gives them something, a bigger bodied guy at the position. There's just a lot of quality and depth there. And the offensive line comes in at 18th. Is it 18th? No, 13th. Got a bit older at the tackle position. Could be some problems there, but they're a well-coached group. The interior's young and improving. So that sort of holds this score back a bit. That and the running back spot, but in the passing game, expect them to be very dangerous again. Titans, somewhat the opposite. Bit middling in the passing game. I've got Mariota ranked 13th. Just need to see a bit more aggression from him. It's a little bit conservative for me to be too high up on this list. I've got them 4th at running back. Derek Henry, DeMarco Murray, both fine running backs. 15th in the wide receiving group. The addition of Decker today, I think, helps a lot. Not a lot of experience, but on paper, that Decker and Delaney Walker are both good players who've been there and done it. Tajay Sharp was okay as a rookie last year. They've got the 5th overall pick. Corey Davis, he should contribute, you'd think, this year. And the fellow they had from the Dolphins last year, whose name always eludes me every time I do these shows, he had a really good season. So there's a lot of bodies there. I don't know if it's going to be a high-end group, so I've just edged towards middling, but could be a very good group. Could certainly improve over the course of the year in these rankings. And I've got them with a 3rd-rated O-line. Very good quality at tackle. 2 young studs at the position in Taylor Lewin and Jack Conklin. The interior is also young and pretty good, so they come pretty high up. They were great last year, particularly in the run blocking. Absolutely stellar. Both those teams, 97 points SA. Big jump in the numbers at this point. Coming in 4th, we've got the Dallas Cowboys on 99 points. Dak Prescott coming 12th in my rankings. Much like I said with Mariota, I just need to see him do a bit more in the passing game. But what he does do, he does very well, or did very well last year. Ezekiel Elliott and Darren McFadden, I think, is a great pairing. They come in 2nd in my rankings. There's quality and a decent backup there. Zeke, one of the top looking running backs in the league based on last season. I've got them 18th in the receiving group. Part of this is Jason Witten has to age at some point. Dez is a true number 1. I like Cole Beasley as a slot guy. I'm not a big fan of Terrence Williams. I'd be very worried if Dez Bryant got hurt. I really do feel this group is a bit overly reliant on him being there at this point. So for that reason, they come somewhere in the middle. And as you may expect, they come 1st overall in my offensive line rankings. They got the big 3 there. Travis Frederick, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, all among the top players at their position. Lyle Collins will step in. Until proven otherwise, this is the top offensive line in football for me. So moving on to the 3rd spot. And who was it who got that? The Falcons, of course. Now, they come in with a score of 110. So I had Matt Ryan at 5th. Some may say could have been higher, but bear in mind, for a lot of his career, he's been a slightly above average quarterback. And Shanahan is gone, so I need to see a bit more before I put him above some of the other guys in the list. Running backs, I've got them as the first overall team. I think that Freeman and Coleman combo is fantastic. Offers a little bit of everything. The receiving group comes in at 6th. Obviously, you've got Julio. He's an absolute menace. I think Austin Hooper should be better this year with a bit more experience. Mohamed Sanu's a fine second or third option. Taylor Gabriel gives them a deep threat. There's a lot of quality there. And the offensive line group comes in at 10th. I think they played better than the sum of their parts, but you got Alex Mack's a top player. Jake Matthews has improved each season he's been in the league. It's a pretty good unit. If they can stay healthy, I think they'll perform very well again. We've got a tie for second, and that is between the Saints and the Raiders, both 111 points, just edging out the Falcons. So we'll go with the Raiders first. So Derek Carr came in 9th. Played great last year, just need to see him do it a bit longer before he ranks above some of these other guys. I got him at 5th at running back, which is a bit of a risk because it is assuming Marshawn Lynch comes back as somewhere close to the player we saw in Seattle. Maybe not so much to the last year in Seattle when he was bogged down with injuries. If he's good, the rest of the group, there's some guys who can contribute there, some solid players. If Lynch can be the power back, the red zone back, I think they're going to be a good, diverse group. The receiving group comes in at 12th. Michael Rivera is okay at tight end. Crabtree and Cooper are good players. Cooper just needs to develop a bit more consistency for me. He really was anonymous in some games. But the upside's certainly there. They've got some other guys, Seth Robertson, that can contribute. And the offensive line group comes in 5th overall. Donald Penn, Kalichi Assembly, both great last season. Who's it they got centre? Former Florida State kid. Used to play for Kansas City. Good player. It's a good group. Played very well last year. And got continuity there. So I expect them to keep that up. Saints, I've got Drew Brees at 4. You know what you're getting with Drew Brees. Him and Sean Payton. They're going to throw the ball a lot. And they're going to be successful doing it. Got them ranked 3rd in my running back rankings. A lot of that is I really do think Alvin Kamara is going to be a great back. But also, you've got Ingram, who's pretty much to me the definition of a league average running back. He's perfectly fine. And if Adrian Peterson can recapture, any of the magic that made him Purple Jesus, this group's going to be very dangerous. I think Kamara in particular is going to impress a lot of people. I think he's an exceptional young player. Receiving group, they come in 7th. Willie Snead came out and he's become a really good player. Michael Thomas, I think, is just going to be the new Marcus Colston for them, except perhaps with a bit more upside even. Tight ends, they got Kobe Fleener. Not a big fan of him, but he's okay. They brought over Ted Ginn. He'll be able to catch some deep balls, and knowing the Saints, they'll find someone else to contribute. It's a pretty solid all-round group, and again, they've got a little bit of everything in there. And then the offensive line, I've got them ranked 7th. Could probably have lowered this. Teron Armstead did get injured, but when I initially made the list, that hadn't been announced. Unger is also hurt, so it may end up underperforming this ranking. But other than that, it's a pretty solid group. But Armstead, I think, is the best player on that line, so I think that's a big, big loss for them. So, as you may have figured out, coming in at number 1 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This offense, of course, very productive the last few years. We've got Roethlisberger. As much as I critiqued him for the way he finished last season, I just think there was an injury. There was something there. It just didn't look like the Roethlisberger we're used to. I've got him ranked 3rd in the league. Just beyond that stretch of games, he's been great for the last few years. I've got him ranked 6th at running back. Le'Veon Bell's great. I think John Connor will be a nice change of pace. Receiving group comes in 5th. Martavis Bryant's back. I assume he'll be a dangerous weapon again. Antonio Brown's Antonio Brown. And we'll see what happens with, the other groups. They've certainly got guys. Sammy Coates, if he could learn to catch, that would be grand. They got Juju Smith-Schuster in the second round. He's a big body type of receiver. Physical possession guy. They've not really had that. So that should be interesting. and Jesse James at tight end. I think there's a lot of players there. It's got potential to be great. And of course, you've already got Antonio Brown, who's just such a weapon. And the offensive line, I think this is kind of like the Redskins group, somewhat under the radar, but I've got them fourth. Andrew Villanueva's turned into a really good player. Ramon Foster and David DeCastro, a fantastic pair of guards. Pouncey's a rock solid centre. It's a great group. And your Steelers end up coming in first, just scraping past the Ravens Steelers with a score of 114 total points. So there you have it. Those are my offensive power rankings. Thank you very much for sticking it out. I hope you've enjoyed it. What do you think of the format? Would you change anything? Do you agree, disagree with any of these evaluations? I'm sure you'll disagree with some of them. There's a lot of information there. But let me know. As always, you've got the comment section below. Find us on Facebook at Cover Zero. Find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. More than happy to discuss all these things with people. Love talking ball. If you want to check out the defense episode, that should also be up today, possibly tomorrow. Similar format next week. Definitely check that one out as we deliver the final power rankings, considering every aspect of a team. And there's plenty of other stuff on the channel. As of July, going to be doing season previews. I'm going to be doing an episode covering each team in the NFL. So definitely check those out. So I recommend liking, sharing, subscribing if you've enjoyed it. Check out some more. Check out the Patreon. It's thoroughly appreciated. And, as always, thanks so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great day and go Bucks.